The first time I dropped anchor in that hidden bay, it felt like the world exhaled with me. My name's Mark. I'm 42 years old, originally from Charleston, South Carolina. For the past 8 months, I've been living alone on my boat, a 40-foot sloop I named the Echo. It's been my home since everything fell apart. Back in Charleston, I used to run a small architecture firm. I had a house, a German Shepherd, and a wife named Julia. All gone now, the house sold, the dog with my cousin, and Julia, well, she's probably still in bed with Marco, the so-called life coach she met at a self-help retreat. She said she wanted to redefine love. I found her text before she could redefine it into our marriage. So here I am, floating just off a remote Greek island whose name I can't even pronounce, savoring the silence. I've been anchored in this bay for 3 days, barely seeing a soul. I'd start the mornings with strong Greek coffee, work through the day fixing little things on the boat, and watch the sunset with a cold beer and some olives. My phone stays off. The only voice I hear is mine. Some men run toward people after a breakup. I ran the other way. I don't trust myself around people anymore. When your wife can cheat on you and then tell you it's your fault for being emotionally conventional, you start wondering what's real. I knew I had to get out before I turned bitter, or worse, before I started to believe her. Last night, as I watched the red sun drop behind the cliffs, I felt a rare sense of peace. Then, I heard it, a thumping bass line echoing across the water. Lights, music, laughter, and then came the yacht. It was the size of a floating hotel, all chrome and ego, plowing into my quiet bay like it owned the place. Some party barge full of tanned men in unbuttoned shirts and women laughing like they were auditioning for reality TV. And leading the charge? A guy in a suit. A damn suit. He came over on a dinghy with 2 other guys, shirt open to his navel, a drink already in his hand. "Hey, friend," he called out, his accent pure West Coast. "Think you could scoot on out? This bay's kinda small for 2 of us." I stayed seated at the helm, sipping my beer. "Anchored here yesterday. I'm good." He grinned, but his eyes narrowed. "Come on, man. You don't want to be stuck next to a party like ours. We'll even toss you a few €100 for the trouble." I raised an eyebrow. "You offering to bribe me off public water?" His smile dropped. "I'm offering you a chance to move before things get complicated." I looked him dead in the eye and took another sip. He stared for a beat, then scoffed. "Suit yourself." As he motored back to his yacht, I watched the lights flash like a disco and shook my head. They thought they could buy silence, buy space, buy respect. But the Echo was my only home now, and I wasn't moving for anybody, especially not some idiot in a suit. It was close to midnight when the yelling started. At first, I thought it was just party noise, the usual drunken shouting over music. But then I heard a different tone. Shrieking, panicked. A woman's voice. Something slammed on deck. Laughter followed, sharp and mean. I stood, squinting at the party yacht. The lights were still on, music still going, but the laughter had a cruel edge now. I could make out a group of guys near the stern, all turned toward a single figure, a woman in a pale dress, her hands up like she was fending them off. One guy grabbed her arm. She yanked it back. Another reached for her waist. Then she jumped. The splash echoed across the water. "Jesus," I muttered, already reaching for my flashlight. She swam hard, desperate. Her arms cut through the water like she was being chased, and maybe she was. Her heels floated behind her, one gone, the other still strapped on as she kicked. The yacht's lights flickered behind her, but no one followed. They just watched. She was about 15 feet from my hull when I called out, "Starboard side. Ladders down." She didn't say a word, just gripped the rail with trembling hands and climbed up, water streaming from her dress, mascara streaked down her cheeks. She landed on the deck, barefoot now, and met my eyes. "Hi," she said, breathless. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just needed somewhere else to be." I looked her over. Young, maybe late 20s, soaked to the bone, but calm. Her voice wasn't high or hysterical. She wasn't screaming or demanding, just tired. I nodded once. Towels hanging by the cabin door. She nodded back, limping slightly as she walked toward it, her bare feet silent on the wet deck. She left a trail of seawater behind her but didn't touch anything, didn't sit. Just wrapped the towel around her shoulders and stood quietly. "Name's Anna," she said after a moment, her voice softer. That was not how I thought tonight would end. "Mark," I replied. "You all right? Physically?" "Sure." "Emotionally?" "Give me a minute." I studied her. She didn't look like the type who ended up fleeing yachts in the middle of the night. Her dress was some kind of designer thing, now clinging to her like tissue paper, and her hair was still mostly pinned up despite the swim. But she wasn't playing the victim. She wasn't even crying. She sat down slowly on the bench along the port side, still not asking for anything. She glanced at her soaked feet and slipped the one remaining heel off, setting it beside her with an odd sort of dignity. "Look, I'll dry off and be gone at first light," she said. "I just couldn't stay on that boat one more second." I leaned against the mast, arms crossed. "Not the worst company I've had," I said after a moment. That got a tiny smile out of her. "Didn't expect you to say that," she admitted. "Figured I'd get yelled at or thrown overboard again. Not my style." She pulled the towel tighter and let out a long, shaky breath. "I won't be in your way. Promise." Funny thing was, she wasn't. Not in the way I expected. I thought she'd be loud, demanding, entitled. But she was quiet, considerate, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't annoyed that someone else was on my boat. I was curious. By morning, the party yacht was gone. I didn't hear them leave. Just woke up to silence and a strangely clean horizon. No lights, no music, no jerks in pastel suits. Just sea, rock, and sunlight bleeding over the cliffs. Anna was still asleep on the bench, towel pulled tight around her, her damp dress draped on the boom to dry. I had laid out a spare pair of old board shorts and a t-shirt for her, just in case. She'd found them in the night and changed. They swallowed her. My stuff was too big, but she looked grateful. I made coffee. Real stuff. Ground beans, gas flame, metal pot. The smell filled the air. I figured I'd drink alone. But then I heard her voice behind me. "You use a kettle? That's civilized." I turned. She looked better in the daylight, or maybe just more real. Her hair was a tangled mess, her face clean of makeup, but her eyes were clear. Alert. "Didn't peg you for a coffee snob," I said, handing her a mug. She accepted it like it was sacred. I wasn't. But after last night, I'll take anything warm and honest. We sat in silence for a few minutes, just sipping. Then she spoke, voice low. "They had a bet, you know. The guys on that boat. Every one of them tried to sleep with every woman on board. Like it was a competition. I didn't say anything. Just kept drinking. I figured it out halfway through the trip. One of the girls was crying in the bathroom. Another locked herself in a cabin. I confronted one of the guys. He laughed. Said I should take it as a compliment. She gave a bitter little smile. When I pushed back, they started freezing me out. No more dinner invites. No more friendly jokes. What happened last night? I asked. One of them, the ringleader, probably came into my room. Said I'd made things awkward, and I could either get with the program or find another boat. Then two more showed up and carried me out. She paused. So I made the choice for them. She looked out at the sea. I didn't even think. Just jumped. That's not like me. I studied her face. There was no panic left, just this dull sort of resolve. Like she'd already made peace with being humiliated, and now she was sorting through what came next. Where are you from? I asked. Milan. Originally. Fashion world. That made sense. The way she carried herself, elegant without trying. I did runway stuff when I was younger. Then catalog. Then, less reputable things. She looked down at her coffee. You start with dreams. Then bills come in. You justify things. You pose in lingerie you'd never wear. You smile when men stare. It becomes normal. Why come on that yacht? I asked. My agent said it'd be good exposure. I needed the cash. And maybe. I thought I'd feel important again. Instead, I ended up swimming for my life in the middle of the Aegean. We sat there, the silence stretching. She didn't seem ashamed. Just tired. I'm not looking for sympathy, she added. I just want to stop pretending. That hit me harder than I expected. Because I knew that feeling too well, living behind a mask, nodding at clients, smiling at family, pretending my wife hadn't cheated, pretending I was okay being alone. You cook? I asked. Her eyebrows lifted. What? I've got eggs, olives, and tomatoes. You want breakfast, or should I toss you overboard now? She laughed, a real one this time, and nodded. I'll cook. But I swear if you judge my technique, I'm swimming back to Italy. I watched her move into the galley like she belonged there. And for the first time in a long while, the boat didn't feel crowded. It felt settled. After breakfast, scrambled eggs with feta and cherry tomatoes, better than anything I'd made in months, we drifted in silence. No wind, no engine. Just the soft slap of the sea against the hull. Anna sat with her legs curled beneath her on the deck cushion, sipping more coffee, her wet dress now bone dry and folded neatly beside her. I sat opposite her, knees up, arms draped over them. Neither of us said much for a while. We didn't need to. Eventually, she looked over at me and said, "So, what's your story?" I hesitated. Then I told her. About Julia. About how she'd been my wife for 7 years, my best friend for 10, my everything until she wasn't. How I found the messages on her laptop, long, flowery texts from a man named Marco. How I confronted her, and she didn't cry or apologize. She just tilted her head like I'd caught her jaywalking. She said she wanted to open the marriage, I said. That monogamy was a Western construct, and we needed to evolve. Anna winced. Oof, that's worse than the cheating. I chuckled, dry and hollow. Yeah. Then came the therapy. Not for the affair, for my rigid expectations. She brought Marco to his session. Shut up. Swear to God. Sat next to her like they were auditioning for a TED Talk on conscious coupling. Anna shook her head. Did you leave her right then? I wish. No. I stayed for 2 more months. Tried to make it work. Thought maybe I was the problem. She leaned forward, eyes locked on mine. You weren't. I looked away. I still wonder. Don't, she said, firmly. You gave someone loyalty. She gave you a lecture and another man's cologne on the sheets. That quieted us both. A breeze kicked up, just enough to rattle the halyard. Anna tucked a stray hair behind her ear and stared out at the horizon. I let men take pieces of me, she said softly. Smiles. Poses. Attention. All for money or approval. I told myself I was empowered. But I was just tired and afraid of being irrelevant. I didn't interrupt. Just listened. I once dated a photographer in Madrid, she went on. He used to say I had the perfect profile, meaning the left side of my face. He'd only shoot that side. I stopped turning my head in public. You believe that? I forgot how to face people straight on. I did believe it. She looked at me again, and this time, I saw something shift. Less armor. More honesty. You know what scares me, she said. I shook my head. That I could disappear and no one would notice. Not really. They'd scroll past a photo. Maybe wonder if I quit Instagram. But no one would say, "Where's Anna?" Like I was never here. I swallowed hard. Same, I said. Except with me, it's like. I built a life brick by brick, and then one day I realized I was the only one still looking at it. Everyone else had moved on, or lied to my face while I was still sanding the floorboards. She smiled faintly. You're better at metaphors than I expected. Architect, I said with a shrug. Old habits. We both laughed. It wasn't loud, just real. Later, when the wind picked up and I adjusted the sail, she helped without being asked. She handed me the winch handle, tied off a line, even checked the cleat. Not like a guest. Like someone who respected the space. After we trimmed the sail and settled back in, she looked over and said, I don't think you're broken, Mark. I think you're bruised. There's a difference. I didn't answer. But something in me let go, just a little. Not enough to call it healing, but maybe the first step. We reached the next island just after noon. It was a small place, mostly white buildings clinging to the cliffs, a sleepy harbor with maybe 3 fishing boats and 1 sleepy-looking cat. I docked there once before for diesel and olives. Nobody asked questions here, which was exactly the kind of place I liked. Anna didn't ask to come ashore. She just stood beside me at the wheel and said, Mind if I tag along? I'll keep my head down. I nodded. Truth was, I didn't mind. I'd gotten used to her presence quicker than I wanted to admit. We walked up from the dock toward the main square, her in my borrowed t-shirt and shorts, me in the usual salt-stained polo. It wasn't exactly romantic, but it felt easy. In town, she moved with a kind of quiet grace. No makeup, no performance, just present. She bought a bar of soap, a pack of bobby pins, a single chocolate bar, and a pair of €5 flip-flops from a dusty old man who barely looked up from his crossword. When we passed a little grocery stall, she picked up a can of lentils and some fresh bread, then looked over at me. What do you think? Good for boat rations? Good enough to survive the apocalypse, I said. She smiled. Perfect. She paid for her half in cash and refused to let me cover anything. You already rescued me, she said. I'm not adding to your grocery bill, too. As we walked back to the dock, the sun high above us, she glanced sideways at me. You thought I'd be the type to buy perfume and wine, huh? I thought you'd be gone by now, I said. She stopped, hand resting on the metal railing beside the pier. Want me to be? I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know, but because the honesty of her question knocked the wind out of me. I don't know what I want, I said, but I don't mind you being here. She nodded once, like she understood more than I said. Fair enough. Back on the boat, she put away her things like she'd been doing it for months. Everything folded, every lid sealed tight. She even tucked the chocolate bar into the fridge without touching it. When I passed by with the water jug, she reached out and stopped me gently with her hand on my arm. "I'll pay you back," she said. "I mean it. For the ride, the coffee, the towel, all of it. You don't owe me anything," I replied. She shook her head. "I do. Because I want to. That's different." I looked at her, really looked, and saw what I'd been missing. She wasn't just pretty, or poised, or mysterious. She was solid, considerate, real. For the first time since Julia left, I believed that maybe, just maybe, someone could be close without wrecking the hall. Maybe I wasn't anchored for life after all. That evening, as the sky turned pink and the boats around the harbor started lighting their decks, Anna appeared at the companionway in my oldest hoodie, sleeves rolled up, flip-flops on, damp hair tied into a messy knot. "Dinner's on me," she said, hand on her hip. "And no, I'm not asking." I raised an eyebrow. "You planning to fish off the stern?" "There's a taverna on the hill," she said, gesturing inland. I asked the old man at the market. He said they make the best grilled sardines on the island. And you believed him? He smelled like oregano and didn't blink for 6 minutes straight. That's enough credibility for me. So we went. The walk up was steep, but she didn't complain. She joked about her flip-flops flapping too loud, told me a story about a modeling shoot in Morocco where a camel tried to eat her hair extensions, and laughed so hard she had to stop and lean on a tree. At the taverna, 3 tables, 1 cook, no menu. We split a plate of sardines, a salad, and some bread so fresh it steamed when we broke it. Anna drank a glass of white wine, slow and careful, while I stuck to water. "You're not drinking?" she asked. "Trying to stay sharp," I said. "Trust issues." She nodded like she understood. "You think I'm gonna rob your boat?" "I think I've had enough surprises to last a while." "Fair." We talked more than I expected. About nothing, mostly. Books we faked reading in school, terrible airline meals, the one time she got kicked off a photo shoot for sneezing during a serious pose. "I used to think if I smiled wide enough, people would forget I was scared," she said, eyes fixed on the flickering candle between us. "Turns out they just stop asking how you're doing." I leaned back in my chair, watching her face in the low light. "You don't seem scared now." She met my gaze. "That's because I'm not performing." We walked back down in silence, not awkward, just peaceful. The stars were already out, and the sea glowed faintly in the dark. At the dock, she paused, looking out over the water. "I haven't kissed anyone in over a year," she said. I turned toward her. "Why tell me that?" "Because I'm going to kiss you," she said. "And I want you to know it means something to me." Then she did. It wasn't rushed, or wild, or full of heat. It was soft, unfolding, like we both needed to confirm we were still human. When she pulled back, I expected the nerves to return, the retreat, the apology. But she looked steady. "I'm not asking for anything," she said. "Not a promise. Not a plan. Just honesty. No games. I've had enough of those." I nodded. "No games." She smiled. "Then let's see what happens." Back aboard the Echo, she sat beside me on the deck cushions, her shoulder brushing mine, her feet tucked beneath her. We didn't go below. We just sat under the stars, sharing warmth and silence. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about betrayal, or failure, or what came next. For the first time, I wasn't thinking at all. Just breathing, with her beside me. A week later, we pulled into the mainland marina, the one I'd avoided since the divorce. It was near Athens, where the tourists outnumbered the locals, and every dock worker knew too much about the lives of people living on their boats. I hadn't planned on coming back, but Anna needed a passport reissued, and I needed parts for the water pump. Life doesn't stop just because you're hiding from it. We stayed at my apartment, a modest 2-bedroom with cracked tile floors and a view of the sea if you leaned out far enough over the balcony. I hadn't been back in almost 2 months. The fridge smelled like it was holding a grudge. Anna didn't complain. She cleaned out the fridge while I fixed the plumbing under the sink. She found my old vinyls and played Sam Cooke while she folded her laundry. It felt normal, like we were 2 people playing house, like we weren't walking on the ruins of old lives. That comfort started to crack by the 3rd day. It was small stuff. She'd reach for my phone, and I'd flinch. I'd disappear to the marina for hours without saying when I'd be back. She didn't push, but she noticed. Then came the knock on the door. I was drying dishes. Anna was barefoot on the balcony, reading. When the buzzer rang, she peeked her head in and said, "You expecting someone?" "No." I opened the door. Julia stood there. Same dark hair, perfectly styled. Same sharp cheekbones. Same impossible-to-read eyes. She wore a white blouse tucked into navy trousers and carried a designer purse like it was part of her arm. "Hi, Mark," she said. Then, her eyes drifted past me into the apartment. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "You are." She tilted her head, smiling like it was all a game. "Can we talk?" "No." That was when Anna stepped into view. Julia's gaze snapped to her. She blinked once, then smiled again, smaller now. "You must be Anna." Anna didn't blink. "You must be Julia." Julia stepped forward. "I didn't come to fight." "Then you should have stayed wherever you came from," I muttered. She ignored me and looked directly at Anna. "You should know Mark and I have history. Real history. A marriage. A life." Anna folded her arms. "And then you threw it away for Marco, the life coach." Julia's face twitched. "That's not how it happened." I stepped in. "She knows everything, Julia. Don't start rewriting it." Julia's voice turned cold. "You can't replace a decade with a girl you found in the water." Anna didn't even blink. "I didn't replace anyone. I just didn't lie to him." Julia's eyes narrowed. "You don't even know him." "I know what it looks like when someone's been used and blamed for it," Anna said calmly. "I know the look in his eyes when he talks about you. I know he's still healing from the wreckage you left behind. And I know he doesn't owe you anything." The silence was thick. Julia looked at me. "Is this it, then? You're choosing her?" "I'm choosing peace," I said. "Something I never had with you." She let out a soft, bitter laugh. "You always did love being the victim." "No," I said. "I just stopped loving being the fool." She stared at me, and for the first time, I saw it, the mask slipping, the smile faltering, her power over me dissolving right there in the doorway. She turned without another word and walked down the hall. When the door clicked shut, Anna looked at me. "You okay?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah. Actually, yeah." We stood there in the quiet apartment, the air still crackling from the confrontation. I took a breath, deep and slow. The past had just knocked, and I hadn't let it back in. The next morning, the sun rose over Athens with that hazy gold light that made even the cracked sidewalks look warm. I sat on the balcony with a mug of coffee, staring out at the marina 2 blocks down, where the boat swayed gently at its berth. The apartment behind me was quiet. Anna had just finished showering, humming something low and tuneless. I hadn't spoken since Julia left. Not really. I didn't need to. I thought I'd feel wrecked. Shaken. Something. But I didn't. I felt steady. Not because Julia hadn't hit her mark, she had, like always, but because Anna had stayed beside me while she tried. Anna stepped onto the balcony in one of my old t-shirts, toweling her hair. She took the mug from my hand without asking and sat next to me, cross-legged. "Boat still floating," she said after a minute. "That's a good sign." I smiled faintly. "She's stubborn. Like her owner." Anna sipped, then looked at me carefully. "I'm not going to ask how you're feeling." "Good." She nodded like she already knew. "Then I'll ask this. What now?" I looked at her. She didn't mean us. She meant me. The boat. The exile. The pain I'd wrapped around myself like armor. The self-imposed drifting. "I don't know," I said honestly. For a long time, I thought solitude was safer. I thought if I kept people away, I wouldn't get hurt again. But, I looked down at my hands, scarred knuckles, tan lines from sailing gloves. "But then you jumped out of a party yacht in the middle of the night and swam into my life." She grinned. Very cinematic. "Yeah, well, you were the plot twist." We sat there, letting the city wake up around us. Then she said it. "I want to see more of Europe." I turned. "What?" "I mean it. I want to take a road trip. Through Italy. France. Maybe Croatia. Hit the coast, chase the good wine and bad roads." She leaned in. "With you. If you want." I blinked. "You want a road trip? In a country neither of us is from, with no real plan, and no guarantee we won't kill each other by week 2? "Exactly," she said. "Think of it like sea trialing a relationship, but with gear shifts and espresso." I laughed. Not a chuckle, a real laugh. The kind I hadn't heard in my own throat in years. She waited, watching me. Calm. Not needy. Not desperate. Just offering a hand across the gap I'd drawn around myself. "I'm not fixed," I said finally. "Julia still gets in my head sometimes. There's still weight on my chest when I wake up. Still times I think I'm better off alone." Anna nodded slowly. "And I'm not asking you to be fixed. I'm just asking if you're willing to try something different." I looked out at the marina again. At the echo, bobbing gently, waiting for direction. Yeah, I said. Let's try. A week later, we untied the lines. I watched the apartment fade into the distance as we motored out into open water. Anna stood at the bow, arms out like she was soaking up the wind, her hair whipping back. She wasn't my savior. She wasn't my solution. She was just herself. And maybe, for once, that was enough. As the island disappeared behind us, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I may never escape what Julia did to me, but I don't have to live in it anymore. There's a whole world ahead, rough, uncertain, wide open. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't sailing away from something. I was sailing toward it. Together.